My dear, dear little children of the Dark Lord, do you know what I have been through for you? Can you even imagine the heat of the hellfire that I have walked through to make this video? Well, if you can't, then I'm here to tell you all about it. Ew, lip gloss is gross. I watched the entirety of the Leprechaun franchise, all 8 movies, and let me tell you, this was nothing like the joy of discovering the Child's Play franchise for the first time. So today I'm ranking all 8 movies. Hope you stick around for that. If you're new here though and the intro was like a little bit off-putting, let me just explain. Hi, daughter of Satan, Antichrist, here at your service. I just love talking about horror movies. If you would like to be one of my little maggots, one of my little children, then all you have to do is click subscribe. Then click the like button and the notification bell, that way you never miss our next meeting. I'm gonna kick off this cult meeting by talking about my experience with this franchise. If you've been around for a long time, maybe you remember that I was gonna do a bit of a deep dive on this franchise 2 years ago, and I gave up halfway through the second movie. In my defense, I had started the franchise and then my grandpa died. So in those moments, you kind of have to like pick and choose with your priorities. And once I was halfway through the second movie, I just was like, yeah, I cannot do this right now. It only took 2 years to come back to it though, so here we are, finally gonna rank it. I'm actually so glad that I didn't give up halfway through the second movie this time. I soldiered on through the trenches. But oh man, are there some stinkers in this franchise. Majority of the movies are stinkers, but majority of them are pretty self-aware, so at least they have that. And I love a good dark comedy, so I absolutely found things to appreciate about most of the movies in this franchise. But the bottom... Ugh, I had a hair on my lip. You didn't tell me, fake friend. The bottom tier of this franchise. Woof. I might have to rail on these movies a little bit, particularly with number 8, Dead Last. I have Leprechaun Origins. This was the 2014 film. It was the first movie after Warwick Davis had left the role. And this literally just is not a Leprechaun movie. I'm sorry. I don't understand at what point it became one, but it is not one. First of all, I don't know what the hell. They're calling this thing a leprechaun. What do you mean? That is one of the cave-dwelling monsters from The Descent. They really thought that that would pass. Get a grip. Get real. This movie also has one of the most heinous offenses, in my opinion, of any movie. A movie does not need, honestly, any type of budget to have good lighting. It just doesn't. Slumber Party Massacre from 1982 was made for $250,000 and it's gorgeous. Leprechaun Origins was so dark. You could not see a single thing. Unless they were outside, and it was so harsh because nobody in the crew thought to mention, hey, let's throw up a sunshade. Let's maybe diffuse some of this disgusting sunlight. So ugly. Honestly, I don't know that the acting was that bad. I think that I just didn't care. It was honestly a little bit tragic how hard some of the actors were trying with this material. I was kind of barely paying attention, to be honest. I checked out of the movie so early, and I would check back in anytime there was any sort of like hullabaloo going on, mostly because I just thought it was so shocking and sick and twisted how the leprechaun looked. I swear to God that they just went back in, maybe they ADR'd and they did some movie magic trickery and then shot some inserts of gold coins and stuff to make this a leprechaun film. I don't understand. Maybe when they went back and did reshoots to make it a leprechaun film, they were like, let's just make it really dark. Nobody will notice the continuity errors. I'm saying this not having done any research. I don't care. You feel free to correct me in the comments section. But I don't care because it honestly doesn't matter. That's how the movie feels. That's what seems like happened. So regardless of if it did or not, it doesn't matter. That was a half-star film for me, as was the number 7 in my ranking. Most unfortunate, because before this, I had not logged a movie at a half-star, I think since at some point last year. I really try not to do that anymore. If I really dislike a movie, I turn it off. I save myself from having to put that negativity out there. But I was committed to this, wasn't I? So at number 7, I have Leprechaun Back to the Hood. This was tough because I thought this movie had some promise. Oh, and also this is gonna have spoilers for the whole franchise, which I feel like is fine. It's not a franchise that's worth watching. I think if you're a horror fan, then yeah, at some point in your life, if if you're leading up to St. Patty's Day, like what I did here, then yeah, then you got it in the memory banks. You got it. You can talk with the people about it, but it's not a franchise worth watching, okay? So I am going to talk about spoilers and the very few things that I did enjoy about these terrible movies. In Leprechaun Back to the Hood, I thought that things were kind of looking up because even though I'm pretty sure that I was already like a half hour into the movie before the leprechaun showed up, when he did show up, he was smoking out of a bong with one of the guys at this house. And that scene was hilarious. It was the only good thing about the movie though, because right when the movie started, I was like, okay, I mean, they put some more interesting actors in this. That's cool. Or maybe not actors, but like rappers rather. But as soon as the movie started, I was having to crank the volume. I was like, why is it so quiet? The audio for almost the entire movie sounds like shit. That was also the first movie of the franchise that was produced by Lionsgate. So I'm like, why did that happen? I think just the shoddy quality of it and the fact that they completely stripped away the entire character of the leprechaun. I don't blame Warwick Davis for not wanting to come back because he created the character. It is synonymous with him. Imagine doing all that work for, well, I'll say the first 4 movies, and then it's just completely stripped away, and the fact that you're a villain that has these interesting motives and everything, that's just gone, and suddenly your screen time has dwindled down to like 5 minutes. I think because at that point, they probably just couldn't foot the bill for Warwick Davis. He is a talent, but that just sucks. And when I saw people talking about this on Letterboxd and saying that this was his swan song, you guys, I thought that he had died. That scared me. How dare you? Because he's still acting. Like, he's still doing the movies. Well, no, right now I think he's like the host of this game show, but I had to double check because you guys freaked me out. It's his swan song as the leprechaun character. Leprechaun? It's his swan song as the leprechaun character, sure. But you gotta work on your wording with that. I don't really have that much more to say. Maybe there were some okay kills, but I was just not dialed into this one either. I, in fact, don't see myself ever wanting to rewatch that movie. I would probably skip it if I was watching the franchise again. The only thing that I would want to watch is, again, that first scene with the leprechaun ripping the bong. Warwick Davis is so funny. It's just another thing that's so baffling. Like, why not use his comedic talents? Ugh. Anyways, okay, those are the only half-star movies of the franchise, but my number 6 is not that much better. I promise things will start looking up once we get to the mid-tier. At number 6, I do have Leprechaun in the Hood, and I was bummed about this because I had a lot of people telling me that it was one of the better ones of the franchise, but again, there's not enough Warwick Davis. They completely stripped most of the magic from the first 4 movies, in which the first 4 movies are so outlandish and so fun. That was what I had grown accustomed to. That was what I enjoyed about them. And then it's all just gone, and then I'm meant to be invested in all these human characters, and I'm just not. It honestly was a 1-star movie to me because I did give it credit for, I think there was 1 kill that I enjoyed. I think the leprechaun reached his hand through an entire person or something like that. My memory's a little hazy because I did binge the entire franchise. There were a few days that I watched multiple of the movies in the same day, so the memory's not super sharp. But that was the 1 good kill that I could remember. It was a good practical effect, so I was like, let me just give it a point there. But everything else I found a little bit boring. I felt like for the most part, I was just looking at these close-up talking headshots. It just was a lot of people talking, and I just didn't care. You'll have to let me know what I was missing from that one, because the way that people speak about it, they think that it's really fun, which I just did not get. But I did get that from a handful of the other movies of the franchise. Starting with my number 5, which would be the original Leprechaun. This one I think is just fun because it's Jennifer Aniston. I don't think that there's literally any other reason. It's charmingly bad, I suppose. It also feels like a Disney Channel original movie, which I feel like somebody in my comments has told me the story before. Again, I didn't do any research. I was like, I'm not doing a deep dive of this franchise. Maybe someday I could be convinced. But after watching the whole thing, I was like, yeah, no, we're just ranking it. I can't remember if somebody told me that it was originally written for Disney Channel or something to be a kids movie. I don't know at what point it became a horror movie, or maybe it always was one because it kind of came right off the tails of Child's Play. It came out right after the original trilogy of Child's Play movies, so I'm pretty sure that it was always intended to be a horror movie. And for it being a Child's Play ripoff, it is kind of impressive how much they managed to capture what is good about the Child's Play franchise. They even have a child in the original movie, but I think my favorite thing is just the character arc of Jennifer Aniston, and I don't remember her character's name, I'm gonna call her Jennifer Aniston. season. She's literally playing Rachel Green. If you remember from Friends in, like, I think it's probably only the first season, maybe the second season too. She's just this spoiled rich girl, this total city girl, and she hates the house, and I'm like, girl, I can't blame you, really. But then she decides to stay simply because there is a hot man there, and I have to respect the game. Shooters shoot, players play, and painters paint. She was like, dust, spider, not just spiders, tarantulas. No, that's fine. He's hot. I'll stay, Dad. But thus begins the long tradition of most of the Leprechaun movies being rom-coms. What a strange thing. We'll get more into that later. The first movie doesn't have as much magic. It is a little bit more coherent in terms of like the Leprechaun's abilities, because they go off the walls in the following movies. But I think the very fact that it's more coherent is what makes it a little bit less fun than some of my other favorites. So let's get into the top half of this ranking. At number 4, I have Leprechaun 2. I love that right off the bat, we are switching locations in this franchise. First of all, the fact that it starts off 1,000 years ago in 900 AD in Ireland or something. Do I love the whole concept of it? Absolutely not. The leprechaun kidnaps a teenager to make his wife, and there's just some really uncomfortable scenes, and yet it's somehow so whimsical. I can't explain that because that's generally not the type of subject matter for me. And do I think that they should be so cavalier about it? No, but it was also like 1994 or whatever. So you just gotta love it as a product of its times, I think. I did find a lot of the movie to be really boring. I didn't care about the drunk uncle and whatever was going on with him. I was interested in these kid characters though. It was kind of fun to follow them, but again, it was a rom-com. It played out just like a fairy tale though, which is kind of interesting because you just don't get a lot of fairy tale horror. A little annoying that it's partially sort of the knight in shining armor thing, but that girl she held her own. Honestly though, I think the only reason why this movie is above the original is because of the fan to the face kill. I would be remiss if I did not mention this. It's so crazy how, I don't know when this stopped. I guess maybe like a decade ago when the Kardashians debuted their BBLs and people started getting a lot more into butts. But back then it was all about the boobs, man. But do we kind of love that the fact that he was objectifying a woman is what got him killed? Yes, we certainly do. There's just some fun action. You can definitely see the budget for this one. They had $1.5 million and they really stretched it out. They made it work. Most of it's boring, but I do think that the fun scenes would make the entire movie worth a rewatch. Oh, and I didn't mention the original movie and Leprechaun 2 are both 2.5-star films for me. But so is my number 3 pick, which is Leprechaun 3. This one, I might rate it higher in the future. I'm not sure because things get even, there's so much more outlandish in this one. 2 things in particular that I have to shout out. Number 1, the woman who, did she explode? This woman, she wishes that she had the body she had when she was younger or something, but then part of her transition is one of the worst haircuts that I've ever seen in my entire life. That made absolutely no sense to me, but she was feeling herself, so I was like, okay, get it, girl. And then the leprechaun makes her just absolutely balloon up, and it's so funny because at one point she had, I think, what people would have considered the ideal body in 2016. I've been learning a lot lately about the type of work that celebrities get done to their faces in terms of Botox, surgery, fillers. And at one point, she literally looks like she has the duck-billed, like overfilled lips. I was really stuck on that. I was like, how funny is it that this woman that is obsessed with vanity, this character in this movie, she gets all blown up out of proportion, but she literally looks like some of the modern beauty standards. And then she looks like the modern beauty standard taken too far, like overfilled, overdone. It honestly was a touching moment to me. Not touching, but a moment that genuinely made me think and genuinely felt like a pretty critical social commentary moment, which I don't think that it was supposed to, not at all. The other thing was the twink that literally turns into a leprechaun. I did not have that on my bingo card for Leprechaun 3 and I loved it. I wish that came back for literally any of the other movies in the franchise, but it never comes back. And do I love the fact that the leprechaun's powers are just whatever the screenwriter needs in the moment? Yes. That's the kind of mess that I sign up for with the Leprechaun franchise. Hence why Origin and the Hood movies I just found so boring. Like the powers and the kills, I just did not find that inspired. In Leprechaun 3 though, absolutely. And also his Irish accent was not bad. I didn't look up if he's an American actor or an Irish actor.
Now, me boys, I'll be checking out.
Maybe he's British. Maybe that's why he's good at both the accents. But the whole look that they gave him and everything, I was obsessed with it. And his whole performance, honestly, it was a hoot. I think the reason why I give it 2.5 stars and why I might rate it higher in the future is because I found the first half of the movie to be really boring, which is just, I think, to be expected because these movies, at least in their heyday, they were just meant to be outlandish and entertaining. They weren't really concerned with things like plot and certainly not continuity. So I think that's why I give it 2.5 stars, because I really was only super engaged by the second half of the movie. At my number 2 spot, I have Leprechaun 4 in Space, which I'm sure is where many people consider that this franchise died. I disagree. It is one of my favorites of the franchise. This was the movie where they were having so much fun. It felt like it was the movie that they had the highest budget, even if that's not the case. Did it ever feel for a single moment like we were in space? No, absolutely not. But yet again, we get a rom-com. This time I didn't care because I just felt like I was having bi panic with the entire cast. There's some weird robot dude that is carted around, and I guess he's the head of the program or whatever. His whole thing as kind of the mad scientist, it was not a job well done, but for that very reason I liked it. Because I don't know if it was just because he knew what movie he was in, but the mad scientist thing, it just wasn't really being sold for me. I do think that on some level, if you're gonna play a deranged character, at your core, you also have to be deranged. It's why people like Jack Nicholson and Johnny Depp were quite good at that. And he didn't have that, so maybe that's a good thing. It also starred Miguel A. Nunez Jr., and he's from Friday the 13th Part 3, right? Ooh, baby, ooh, baby, ooh, baby, ooh, baby. That guy! We love that guy. Oh no, he was in Friday the 13th A New Beginning. My bad. He's also in Return of the Living Dead, which I've not seen, I'm sorry. Oh, and he's in Horror Noir. I love that documentary. I think that there was an argument to be made that these are some of the most attractive people to star in a B movie ever. But that's not what's important, is it? What's important is the fact that the leprechaun exploded out of a man's penis. Right, okay, so I actually found that really inspired. How could I talk about Leprechaun 4 without talking about that scene? It's pretty much the crux of everybody's Letterboxd reviews, which I understand, but also get some new material. At one point also, I don't feel like people talk about the fact that the leprechaun grows to a giant size, and we get to see Warwick Davis in like a scale model built version of this room, and he's tearing up these, you know, very clearly styrofoam little pallets and stuff. I think it's so fun. What I don't find super fun is some of the more like misogynistic undertones of the movie. The whole princess character and the boob reveal, that was like, it just struck me as weird. I understand that I'm not the intended audience, but rather men from 30 years ago were. But there's also like the part where the scientist lady, she's crawling through the air ducts and her pants literally just get like sucked off. I didn't even understand how that happened. They did it really well though. It's like this really great effect and it looks super seamless. But when that happened, I was like, okay. Yet again, it was a rom-com, and this was the first time since, I guess, since the original movie that I was really rooting for it. I was rooting for it more than I was for Jennifer Aniston's character because she was annoying. In this movie, Brent Jasper's character, he's, I guess, like this soldier and was just kind of making an ass out of himself because he's trying to flirt with this woman who is brilliant. She's a scientist, and he's just flopping hard. But eventually, he proves himself and they do come together. I did really like them as a pair, I have to admit. I think they had genuine chemistry and there was more talent between them, plus with Michael because they were like the final trio, than a movie of this concept and budget has any right to be. I really felt like they elevated the material. So it is true, Leprechaun 4 in Space is my favorite of the original sextuplet of Warwick Davis Leprechaun movies. So that being said, maybe you've already figured out that my number 1 is Leprechaun Returns. This is the brand new movie from 2018, but it is from the Sci-Fi Channel. And so once I learned that, I was like, this makes so much more sense. Because the Sci-Fi Channel also did the Slumber Party Massacre remake, and that is a fantastic film. It is one of the best remakes ever done. So once I learned that the Sci-Fi Channel had made it, I was like, okay, it makes sense. I'm not crazy. My brain has not been turned to mush from watching the rest of the franchise. I think it is genuinely like a 3-star horror movie. The original 4 movies of the franchise, I gave 2.5 stars. Leprechaun in the Hood was a 1-star movie. Back to the Hood Parenthood and Origins were both half-star films, this was the only 3-star movie of the franchise to me. I think because I genuinely enjoyed the characters that I was watching. They had interesting drama. Yes, they did use the goddamn dead mom trope for our lead, but all the characters had their own unique quirks. I enjoyed their individuality because that was not really a thing for the rest of the franchise. None of the characters were super individual. We got some fun slasher conventions that they played off of with the characters. There was a little bit of debauchery. There was, you know, they were drinking, they were partying when they were supposed to be getting this work done. I also was like, thank God we have an actual leprechaun in this movie. It's not one of the Descent things. He was good. Did he have the same exact little magic that Warwick Davis had? No. But he was really good. He was good. He did his job stepping into the role. I genuinely think that the only reason why it didn't feel quite as whimsical and magical is honestly because the quality of it was a little bit better, oddly. Because the leprechaun, his makeup, it was fantastic. But if you remember from the original Leprechaun movies, you can always kind of see the line on Warwick Davis's lips. The teeth never looked real, but that was just part of the charm. In the newest movie, it's actually this kind of disgusting gremlin looking little leprechaun. I enjoyed that though, and there was some really good gore. The kills are one of my favorite parts of the movie. It was also legitimately funny. I'm so glad that they sort of pendulum swung back the other way from what Leprechaun Origins did. They went back to just completely being unserious, which is the right move. And of course, my favorite kill, which is probably everyone's favorite kill, the sprinkler scene. Come on with that. The fact that it goes through her head and then it starts squirting out blood, that is inspired. That's a proper slasher kill right there. I love that. There were some really strange elements to the movie, like the guy that dies early on because the leprechaun bursts out of him. That was also a good scene. But then he comes back like as this ghost and our lead character is seeing him. It's so bizarre. But I would prefer that. I would prefer that the filler time be filled with weird stuff like that engages me and makes me confused, rather than just being bored, you know, watching these two teenagers talk to one of their drunk uncles. That's not very fun. I genuinely enjoyed it, and funnily enough, it's my favorite of the franchise, and it's the only one that I don't have on physical media. I have the entirety of the rest of the franchise in a single 7-film bundle. I thought that I had all of them, so imagine my shock and horror when I had finished Origins and I learned that I had another movie to watch, but then my pleasant surprise when it ended up being my favorite of the franchise. I have no idea if this ranking is controversial. I know nothing of the fandom of the Leprechaun franchise. I know that there are a few of you that are very strong in its cult following. Not me, babes. I don't think I'm gonna be sitting at your table, but I get it. So let me know your ranking down below if you've seen all of the movies or if you've seen any of them, honestly. I hope that you have a good St. Patty's Day. Remember to wear green, which I know it looks like I'm not wearing green right now, but actually my makeup, this is like a very dark green sort of glittery color on the bottom there. So it counts. It counts. Be safe out there. Stay hydrated if you're going out. Call an Uber if you need to. I want all my dear little demons to stay safe on this upcoming Irish holiday. If you'd like even more content from me though, I have lots of different stuff on this channel. Go check that out. I've got other franchise deep dives. I've got director deep dives. I've got solo reviews. I've got solo classic movie deep dives. Lots of other franchise rankings as well. But if you also like to talk about physical media, I have a second channel where I do that and where I also vlog. I take you on spooky outings. And if that's still not enough for you, I also have a Patreon. Most recently over there, my dad and I did a little Oscars recap, but I also post solo reviews over there and I give you guys updates on production of my own short horror films. I'm also on social media. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, wherever, but more than anything, I just hope that you enjoyed this video and I hope to catch you in the next one. Bye!